Totally.
Okay. Welcome to my WOW Chats, words of wisdom with people that I admire and respect and whose work is in line with making this world a better place. And I have the honor and the privilege of bringing the words of wisdom of Dr. Gabor Mate. Thank you.
Well, thanks for those kind words.
So much. And for those of you that don't know him, or maybe you don't know of his work, just look at all the links below. I'm going to leave his website and all of the links to your books and events and your calendar. But let's just go. There's so much going on in my head. There's so much I want to ask you. And I think I'm going to take this right now. I'm feeling I have two things on my mind. So one is, I'll just give you a little bit of history here. I just spent 2 full days with Gabor at the Compassionate Inquiry workshop. And yesterday there was something that happened that I wanted I want you to comment on and just elaborate on a little bit.
Sure. And
it was when you had someone up on stage and you were working with them, and what he does is he in this workshop is he demonstrates sort of how he compassionately inquires and how he uses different concepts and approaches, and so you had this woman up on stage, and there was a moment that felt, and actually I felt it sort of felt a bit, I don't want to say off, but just not like in that flow.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, you said something under your breath. You said, "I'm trying too hard. I'm working too much." And then you sort of switched course. And I'm wondering if you can comment on that and maybe even how it relates to healthcare practitioners in that therapeutic environment.
Well, thanks for the question. I don't actually recall the specific incident. When I'm actually doing the work, I'm so much in the flow, I actually end up not recalling what happens. But I can certainly relate that to other times when that's occurred. So in this compassionate inquiry, it's really about going into what's behind people's feeling states and emotions and behaviors and chronic patterns. And to conduct it effectively, it's not enough that I pay attention to the client, but I really do. I have to really pay attention to the client's voice, facial expressions, body language. In other words, what they're messaging me about their internal states, not just what they're saying and how they're saying it, but also who's present in them at that moment. So that requires attention, but requiring equal attention is what's happening inside me. So what would have happened in that incident yesterday, I would have noticed some tension inside me, inside myself. Which is not about the client, it's about what's happening inside me at that moment. And that happens when I've got an intention, and I'm maybe working a little bit too hard to get the client aligned with my intention. But getting the client aligned with my intention is not the purpose of the work. The purpose of the work is to get me aligned with the client's intention and the client's needs and internal states. So if I find myself pushing too hard, trying to get them to see something that I might see and I want them to see, then I'm going to notice that tension in myself. And my mantra on that is, whenever there's tension, it requires attention. So it requires that I tend to myself, because I know surely from grievous past practice that if I'm pushing too hard on a client, and if I don't pay attention to that tension in myself, I'm actually going to, never mind not help them, I may even create some unnecessary suffering for them. So that's what that would have been about.
Thank you for sharing that, and I resonate with that as well. And if I can just ask you one other thing about that, when you said you noticed the tension, is it a feeling that's always the same? Like, is it something that you're familiar with every time, or does it change? Does it depend? Like, is it sometimes you feel it differently in your body, or your breath, or your mind, or is it? Do you know what I'm getting at? Like, is it the same?
Well,
cue?
I can give you the 2 broad cues, not as subtly as you're asking it. On the body level, it's actually, if I pay attention, there's a tension here in my chest area. On the mind level, I'm wanting them to see something. I'm really wanting something to happen that isn't happening.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not inquiring anymore. Inquire means you don't know and you're curious. When I want something to happen, and I know where I want to go with it, that's not curiosity anymore. That's not inquire anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I notice that urgency on the mind level or the tension in the body, then it's absolutely time for me to pause and inquire as to what's going on with them, what's going on with me, and just to switch gears.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I do, you just feel an easing of the tension, and an easing of the compulsiveness of the intention.
Mm-hmm. I find too at that point then the mind becomes clearer too, and things become more in flow. And
well, my mind becomes clearer
mm-hmm.
because I've removed this content, but the mind of the client becomes clear because when people are pushed upon, if they perceive themselves as pushed upon, even when they're not pushed upon, they just perceive themselves, it puts them into physiological and neurological states of defensiveness. And as soon as you put somebody in the state of defensiveness, their mind doesn't work, their upper brain circuits don't function as well. So it certainly leads to clear thinking on the part of the health or care provider, and it certainly leads to more clarity on the part of the client as well. And then, of course, clarity, you clear up what's in the way, and then there's clarity.
I hope so many of you healthcare practitioners find value in that. Do you use that just in your regular personal life too, in relationships?
Just a minute. What kind of an interview is this anyway? More and more I do. I hadn't always, and I hadn't for a long time, and the effects in, say, my relationship with my wife were always negative. And so I've actually learned to do that, and it creates so much space, and so much more clear and loving communication.
It's beautiful. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Words of wisdom with Gabor Mate. I hug people. Are you a hugger?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching this WOW Chat episode with Dr. Gabor Mate. Please check out some of my other WOW Chats with people that I admire and respect.